So the global chaos isn't stopping, and once again, the G7 is destabilizing the global order. It's a reminder that there are two sets of rules in the world rules for D, but not for me. Now, over the past 3 years, we have seen crazy things happen. The seizure of the Russian assets was bad enough. Then we had a global tariff war that even hit Penguin Island. Well, we are back to the good old American strategy of gunboat diplomacy. Now, for those who don't know that term, it means foreign policy supported by the use or threat of military force. That's the gunboat part. Now, the U.S. just sees a sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. This is insane. It's some Rainbow Six operation used in video games, but U.S. forces really went in and they took over VLCC, or Very Large Crude Carrier, which is a big oil tanker. According to reports, the ship had over 1 million barrels of crude, which at today's prices is worth at least $60 million worth of cargo. By any measure, it's a lot of money. The ship most probably will be impounded by the U.S. government. Caracas is calling this an act of piracy, and I can empathize with that sentiment. It's very ridiculous and outright dangerous. And what will happen to the fate of the oil? Well, I'm glad you asked. I had my doubts, but thankfully the president himself, the staff of The Apprentice, clarified everything for us. It's unfortunate what happened. I mean, I know exactly what happened. It got it started a little bit, but we'll see if we can put it out. We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on that ship? Well, we keep it, I guess. Where does it go? What does it go to? Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker. Do you know follow it? Get a helicopter. Follow the tank. Is it sure it's going to? But I assume we're going to keep the oil, but I guess the U.S. is going to keep the oil. I'm sure after factoring the cost of that commando action and the fuel on helicopter, the seizure has a very big positive ROI. And this is the state of the global economy and commodity trade. Apart from imposing financial punishments, we have special forces landing on sanctioned ships to take oil cargoes. Now, Venezuela is, of course, angry about this event. They're calling it blatant theft, and a country would defend its sovereignty and natural resources. And this part is critical. The true reasons for the aggression against Venezuela have finally been revealed. It was always about our natural resources, our oil. The timing and location of this seizure is very suspicious indeed. Is Trump's beef with Maduro really about the cartels? Nope, is very likely about oil and how the U.S. wants to control the production of Venezuelan crude. Now, this move is crazy, and it does have material implications in the global oil trade. If this was a seizure by pirates, it probably won't move markets. But this was done by the U.S. military themselves, which means this is now a method of enforcing sanctions. Gunboat diplomacy is now the name of the game. According to a Pentagon official, the move was a warning to tanker operators. If you dare to load sanctioned crude or your vessel itself is sanctioned, U.S. forces could always send in Black Hawk helicopters. Next thing you know, commandos are fast roping down. They're rappelling down. As a result, Brent crude has risen by 1.2%, hitting almost $63 a barrel. Thanks to this action, now global oil has a geopolitical price flaw in it. Traders and shippers have to think twice before transporting Maduro's oil cargoes. But here's the problem. Where is the crude shipment bound for? Who is the end buyer? Obviously, we don't have enough information, but we do know that the ship, the VCC Skipper, has made deliveries to China before. They have shipped Iranian crude before that was sent to Beijing. Now, this opens up a whole can of worms. Seizing the vessel and oil is also like a warning shot to China. The U.S. has control over the seas, and we can disrupt your energy supply chain if we want. Now, despite the difficulty, Venezuela still exports a lot of oil to the global markets. In November, this hit over 920,000 barrels per day. And in October, volumes actually went above 1 million barrels a day. Here's the important part. Up to 90% of oil shipments goes to China. Now that the seizure has happened, the risk of shipping have escalated. In other words, shipping Venezuelan oil is going to get more expensive. By now, we understand the advantages of cheap oil and what it gives China. Beijing is able to refine cheap crude into products like gasoline and diesel, and it helps lower domestic inflation. More importantly, it allows their factories to have affordable power. It's a reason why China is able to power all their data centers at a cheaper rate as well. Now, this supply is at physical risk. China today is enjoying a glut of cheap oil from sanctioned countries. This includes Russia and Iranian supplies as well. It helps to push prices down. Chinese refiners are now enjoying Venezuelan crude at an incredible $14 per barrel below Brent. That's almost a 25% discount off the benchmark price. Should anything happen to Maduro's shipments, it will take chip volumes off the table. Suddenly, Russian and Iranian oil, they will go up in price as well. Basic supply and demand. So this seizure will have material effects in the oil markets. For the U.S., this serves quite a few objectives. It would most definitely squeeze Maduro's revenues. It's the classic case of destabilizing an economy to change. But this time, it isn't just using economic policy, but the U.S. military itself, as we said, gunboat diplomacy. Secondly, it's also a subtle warning to Chinese crude buyers. Even more tankers transporting Maduro's crude could get targeted. We have reports of more potential seizures happening. After all, it is technically a positive ROI activity, at least financially. So this mess is just getting out of hand. Remember that Trump wants Maduro out. Closing the airspace was just opening salvo. Imposing sanctions is another, but ceasing oil is taking things to a whole new level. Remember the throwback speech during the campaign trail? Trump really wants their oil. How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela. So we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it. Where the oil, their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get, tar. It's like tar. And to refine it, you need special plants. And these people, now, apart from that, Trump also told Politico in an interview that Maduro's days are numbered. So take it as you will, but this crisis is far from over. Now let's talk about another chaos happening this time in Europe. And in a grand scheme of things, this might be even worse than Trump's oil seizure. Europe has agreed to indefinitely immobilize the Russian assets. More than $210 billion will be held away from Russia and might never, ever come back. Now, this, of course, will infuriate the Kremlin, but it would also anger the Americans who want the money as part of the peace settlement. There's only 30 to 50 billion stuck in the U.S. financial system. They are mostly stuck in U.S. bonds. So now Trump's leverage has largely disappeared. Trying to create a joint venture with the Russians is probably not possible anymore. The EU has invoked Article 122, which allows this whole. Under the ban, the wording is very vague, and we have no idea if Russia can ever fulfill the terms to get back the money. The $200 billion will be released when Russia ceases to pose substantial risk for the EU economy. This is so vague. Does that mean resupplying cheap energy to Europe or Putin allowing EU companies to return risk-free? We have no idea. Moscow also has to pay reparations to Ukraine without economic and financial consequences for the bloc. What does that even mean? Doesn't that mean the money was already meant to disappear? Finally, a new qualified majority will be required to trigger the release. So a new EU vote will be needed between member nations. Countries like Hungary will be sidelined again. That's for sure. But realize how dangerous this entire scheme is. There's a reason why Belgium was demanding extra cash buffers. They are afraid of Russian retaliation and the lawsuits that could come upon seizure. We could get decades of that. The entire country could be held liable. How are they going to raise the money? December 18 will be the critical date. That's when the EU will try to finally use up the assets to secure Ukraine's funding, and the money will be used to finance the war until 2027. But things could escalate well beyond the EU. We had reports of Japan rebuffing Europe's request to join the Russian seizure. But now Tokyo has denied the reports, and they're now on the fence on this. This opens up serious questions. Will Japan really use the tens of billions of money to help Ukraine? And if they do, what does it mean for countries looking to invest in Japanese assets like JGB bonds? And this brings us to the big reallocation of assets from global central banks. Putting aside the Fed rate cards, the Russian asset seizure could provide a big tailwind to gold in 2026 and beyond. Now, despite higher prices, central banks have been buying gold year after year since 2022. That is the year when Russian assets was seized. Gold has gone from under $1,800 an ounce to $4,300, and the banks are still buying Central banks bought another 53 tons in October, with Poland buying the most. Another big buyer is Brazil with 16 tons in October. BRICS countries are starting to move away from G7 assets because it's just so risky. Counterparty risk is real, and Europe keeps reminding us of this seizure threat. Well, if there's one country listening with their ear to the ground, it's China. They have a trade surplus of over $1.2 trillion. So deciding where to put their money is a national decision. China has always been secretive about their gold buying. They don't want anyone to know the official amount, but even their suppressed numbers show a clear trend. China is de-dollarizing. They also aren't buying a ton of foreign currencies as well. They are going for gold. China bought an additional 30,000 tons in November, bringing their total above 2,300 tons, is now worth $311 billion. But in percentage terms, it's simply mind-blowing. Gold now accounts for 9.3% of their total FX reserves. There are multiple reasons why, but counterparty risk is a really big factor here. Watch what happens later this month or early next year. If Europe or even Japan decides to transfer the Russian assets away, it's game over. We can expect even more central banks to buy gold, especially China. Will Europe do the confiscation? Chances are they will. Not even the ECB can stop them. And I'm very sure they can rewrite the rules to suit them. Now, forget about the U.S. supporting Europe in the war as well. Trump is done with Russia, and the American economy cannot afford to send another $100 billion to Ukraine. It's not going to happen. Trump has also shown his absolute disdain for Europe, which further isolates the bloc away from the U.S. And when you are tired and alone, you tend to make wrong decisions. I think they're weak, but I also think that they want to be so politically correct. I think they don't know what to do. Europe doesn't know what to do. They don't know what to do on trade either. I mean, I look at a lot of the trade, situation that's going on over there. It's a little bit dangerous, but Europe, they want to be politically correct, and it makes them weak. What we are seeing today is just pure geopolitical chaos. Everything and anything can be weaponized. The U.S. is turning global oil markets upside down while Europe is about to embark on a campaign to destroy their own financial markets. There's nothing we can do really about this, but to realize the likely outcomes. Oil prices could continue to climb if things escalate. More trust in Western assets is about to be eroded as well, so invest accordingly. But let me know what you think. Will Trump seize more oil? And will Europe really use the frozen Russian assets? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through this crazy times.